Joe.
Blackula.
Stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused.
And I'm your host, Dennis Snipe.
What you want? Who you talking to?
Oh no, it was none of that.
Oh man.
Reverend Snipe didn't play any of that.
Okay.
And he said, "Boy, you best put a handle on grown folk name.
Now look out.
If you don't put a handle on their name, I'm gonna put a handle on you."
That's all I can now.
And so, Senator, what we're gonna talk about? Can we talk a little bit about your book?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll talk about your book, your illustrious career, and what you're doing now, and then we'll talk a little bit about the event.
Okay.
And just let people know for more information they can contact the Mebane Media Group.
Yeah, I got that number here.
Because I think she gave me one as well. Okay. You ready, brother? Oh, you know what? Let me do mic check. I can let him know to edit that out. No. Okay, no problem. We ready, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 5, 4. I'll do it now. Senator, if you can talk in that microphone for me. Is it in a good right position?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My name is Roland Burris, born August 3rd, 1937, in Centralia, Illinois. Now live in Chicago.
Okay.
And I will be celebrating my 99th birthday. My 80th birthday.
All right. That is fine, sir.
My name is Roland Burris, born August 3rd, 1937.
That's a pretty good likeness.
Centralia, Illinois. Now live in Chicago. And I will be celebrating my 99th birthday. My 80th birthday.
All right. You know what? Do you mind if I keep that? I'm going to keep that. I won't have it in the actual broadcast, but I'll just keep that for my archives along with your picture.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
My permission.
All right, we're all set.
Yes, sir.
5, 4.
You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station. 89.3 is WKKC. This is FocusTalk, the thought-provoking, solution-oriented talk show daring to make a difference in our communities. We're talking on a regular basis because the answers really matter. What are we talking about? We're talking about politics, religion, personal development, education, history, music, and then from time to time, we are spotlighting positive people who are doing positive things right here in the Inglewood community, throughout the Chicagoland area, as well as the entire nation. I'm your host, Dennis Snipe. I am incredibly excited today to have in the studio Senator Roland W. Burris. Senator Burris, how are you today?
I am terrific, Brother Stipes, and thanks for the invitation. Thank you,
no, thank you for accepting.
Yes.
Now, again, we talked a little while ago, maybe about a year ago, when your book first came out.
That's correct.
And I didn't do very much talking because I was just listening to the audio book that you are, because you are a walking history book. So much information about politics, about life, about work ethics, just incredible. And so I am pleased as punch to have you in the studio again. Now, how long did it take to craft the book from beginning to end, Senator?
It took me just under 5 years.
Okay.
Because I left the United States Senate in 2010. I started it in 2009.
Okay.
And I did not finish it until 2014.
And go ahead.
And we, of course, went to market then in June or July, and we had book signings all over the country with the book.
Okay. All right. Now, it starts at the very beginning of your career?
Born and raised down in Centralia, Illinois, which is a small southern Illinois community. And it tells Roland Burris' story of growing up as a young man downstate Illinois. My hometown had about 14,000 people in it. 2,000 were black and 12,000 were white. And it's a very integrated community. Mm-hmm. And of course, I went on to school a little bit further south, down in Carbondale at Southern Illinois University. And I did my 4 years there and graduated and got a scholarship to the University of Hamburg in Germany, where I was an exchange student to the University of Hamburg, studying international law, all in the German language. So, and of course, I was going to go back to SIU and finish a master's, but I got admitted to law school. Okay. And of course, I got admitted to Howard University, and naturally I took off for D.C. in 1960 and finished law school.
What was rewarding about the political aspect? Did you always aspire to be a politician, or that was something that happened later on in life?
Well, Brother Snipe, that came out of an incident that happened in my hometown, and that's us proceeding to integrate the public swimming pool in the park in Centralia. And blacks were not permitted to swim in that pool until 1953, when my brother and my father and the president of the NAACP moved to get the pool integrated. And I was one of the 5 young black kids at 15 years old that headed out to integrate the pool. And to make a long story real short, we integrated the pool. There was no problem. But then my father had hired a lawyer from East St. Louis to represent us in case there was any problems and we were put in jail or something. And the lawyer that he hired didn't show up. So after we were home celebrating this Memorial Day 1953, my father comes back into the house because he had gone out looking for the lawyer. I guess he was all upset. And he then said, well, Dad, what's the problem? We can swim in the pretty blue water now, And so my father said this. He says, the lawyer that he hired did not show up. And if we as a race of people are going to get anywhere, we have to have lawyers and elected officials who are responsible and responsive. Now, my dad never told me to become a lawyer. He never told me to become an elected official. But from that statement and that incident, I set 2 goals in my life at age 15. One was to be a lawyer. The other one was to be a statewide elected official of Illinois. I thought about, lieutenant governor. That's the only thing I knew about at 15 years old. But I ended up being, of course, elected, some 25 years later, the first black ever elected statewide in Illinois to the office of state comptroller in 1978. And, of course, I just said earlier that I'd become a lawyer going through Howard Law School. So it was my goals that I'd set, and I was on a mission to accomplish those goals.
We must have elected officials who are responsible and responsive.
That's correct.
Okay. And that resonated with you?
Resonated to the tilt. I mean, I was a young whippersnapper. I mean, I had no focus on hardly anything. It was a very carefree life. But that junior year in high school, my brother was away at college, and he had left one of his new suits hanging up in the closet. Mm-hmm. I put on that brother's new suit, got my dad's white shirt and a tie, and I went back to my high school classes my junior year, and the teachers didn't even know who I was. They thought they had a new student or something. But I was serious, and I wanted to become a lawyer. And so had I not made a D in geometry and a D in Latin, I would have graduated with high honors. But I did finished high school with honors and got a scholarship to SIU.
Senator, do you think that same type of fire, that same type of dedication is present in our young people as well as elected politicians today?
It's isolated. I think it is. You'll find those individuals who really still have ambition. You see, I think of the young man who was born and raised here in the developments in Chicago, become governor of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick. Now, you can look at those individuals, and some of them are now, still making progress. I mean, look at this young man who became president of the United States. I mean, so it's an individual thing, and it's a situation that they set their goals and their ambition based on their environment, based on what direction they get from elders. And that's why it's so important for us to work with our young people, try to touch base with them, try to give them guidance. That saying it takes a village to raise a child, it's very true. Because I know that in my hometown, everybody, especially in the black families, we'd be over in the playground playing basketball, and if somebody wanted to say a curse word, you had Miss Garrett over across the street sitting on her porch, and if they say a bad word, Miss Garrett said, "Okay, boy, you don't say them bad words in here." Or Miss Howard, or Miss Coleman, they helped raise us. And anyone probably in those days could give you a little, spanking on the back if you got a little sassy.
Right.
I remember a story. I was about 13 or 14 years old, maybe a little older, and I passed Miss Howard. We had a grocery store in my hometown, and in order to get to our home, to the store, you had to pass Miss Howard's house. And I passed Miss Howard that morning. I said, "Hello, Miss Howard." And I passed it that afternoon. "Hello, Miss Howard." I went by. The time I spoke to her twice, she's still sitting on the porch, right?
Right.
I go by the third time. I didn't say anything to Miss Howard. So I'm up to the store doing my little job, putting my canned goods up on the shelf. My dad comes in because he came home from the Illinois Central where he worked, got dressed. He'd come up to the store to work too. And evidently Miss Howard told him that I passed her and didn't speak. So he comes in the store and I'm, "Roland, come here, boy." And he said, "Boy, what?" He said, "Did you pass Miss Howard today?" I said, "Yes, Dad, I passed." "Did you speak to Miss Howard?" "Yes, Well, how many times you passed her?" I said, 3 times. "Well, how many times did you speak?" I said, 2 Wham! He whopped me upside my head. Said, "If you pass Miss Howard 100 times, boy, you speak to Miss Howard. You better rest assured," Brother Snipe said, "every time I pass Miss Howard,
You spoke.
I spoke to Miss Howard, even when Miss Howard wasn't there. I said, 'Hi, Miss Howard.'"
Senator Burris, you mentioned that it does take a village in order to raise not only a child, but to make sure that the entire community is together. But now, does it take any type of monitoring or assistance for the village itself? Does the village need any help?
Absolutely. I mean, the village got to be together. I mean, that's like our community in Chicago got to be together. We have to set the tone. We have to set the example. And if we don't do that, then what are our young people going to do? What are they going to see? You generally do what you see, or act out what you see, or act out what you hear. A little kid coming up and you hear these kids using all these swearing words. It's a learned behavior. Where did they learn it from? They learned it in the home, or they learned it in the streets, or they learned it, from some other uncaring individual. And that's why we must say that positive behavior can also be learned. Because I don't want to be bragging, but my kids are grown now, and my daughter's has a whole doctorate degree. My son is a lawyer. That's because they had a village helping to raise them, and his circle or her circle. They all are pretty successful, middle-aged individuals in their late 40s, early 50s. So that's what we must do. And you look at these young people. I was also Attorney General of this state, and I did this study, the Illinois Commission on African American Males. And for 2 years, I had this entire state studying the black males across Illinois, and all of those 2 years of interviews and talking and conversations, we came up with the bottom line: 2 key ingredients: education and employment, economics.
Okay.
If you look at all the ingredients, if you can get personal education, you look at our state prison population today, which is about over 50% black. And of that 50%, 85 to 86% of them are high school dropouts. They do not have a high school diploma. That's even happening today. And I go back 20, 30 years, you see the same thing, that the person then has to try to survive in this society, and then their survival mode takes them into the criminal behavior. And the criminal behavior then takes them into the prison population, which becomes asocial to our society rather than not being an asset to the society.
Now, Senator Burris, there is I guess you could say a situation where the blame game is going on. The church says that our young people are in trouble because the lack of a father figure in the household. Then the police say that the issue is that the parenting is not together. The church says it's their issue, and it's back and forth. There's the blame game. So in your opinion, who's to blame?
Excellent question. I have to really digest that because there's enough blame to go around.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of it deals on racism, the structure of which some of these parents were raised and involved in because of the lack of black men being able to provide for their families, being able to provide under the structure. So you got to go back to the days of how the economic situation created the lack of resources in the black family. Mm-hmm. And so you would find that the single mothers trying to raise the kids, and at one time, if there was a man involved, she couldn't get the support that she needed to raise the kids, or the man had to stay away. We got all of that type of history that impacts the culture, impacts our well-being and our growing up in the environment in which some of the kids grew up in. And so that's to blame. The fact that the young parent did not, see the picture of having hope and ambition and drive to aspire to make a contribution to society, and therefore to provide for a family should a family be produced. And most times there's a family going to be produced, and how is that innocent child going to survive? And what is going to be his or her outcome during that period of time when there are no resources in the household that's going to help guide that child? So all of that is to blame, Brother Snipes. But then think about the 75% that really do good things and are right. And I maintain it's about 25% of our society that really is the one that's on the wrong track. And we must work and do all we can to benefit that 25% so that they can be assets rather than liabilities.
All right. Now, needless to say, Senator, we won't be able to solve the ills of society in this particular session.
I wish we could.
I wish we could as well. But please know that we would always be more than delighted to have you back in the studios to talk, to give your opinion, and to give us insight. But for now, what is Senator Roland Burris doing now? Well, I understand that you're still working.
I'm still working.
Yes, sir.
I tried to retire after I finished my book in 2014. I think it was done in March or April 2014, and I was home resting. Say, okay, I'm going to retire now. And so, May came, and I was sleeping till 10 o'clock in the morning. After about a month of that, I couldn't take it. So I started looking around what to do, and I'm a lawyer. So I said, let me go and see if I can't start up my law practice again. Because before I went to the United States Senate, I was practicing law. Okay. And so I did start it up, start on a part-time basis. And I do elder law for senior citizens. I do probate and estate planning, and try to help people transfer their wealth and try to prepare the documents that will be needed to to assist in that fashion. Of course, you're going to talk to people about transferring wealth, and they say, well, I don't want to talk about death and dying. Well, guess what? We all going to die. We're not going to get out of this world alive. And if you accumulate some assets, you would want to make sure that they would be going in the direction of where you want them to go. So therefore, it takes the law has provided vehicles for that to happen, for that to take place. So that's what I do now. And I, because I do a lot of public appearance, I still counsel a lot of students. I get calls from everywhere saying that, can you advise me? As a matter of fact, I think this Thursday coming up, I will be meeting with a young man who says he wants to be a United States Senator. So
really,
I've been contacted, so I will be counseling with him tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
And this is what I'm doing to keep myself busy.
Okay.
And I do not want to rust out.
No.
I want to wear out, okay?
All right.
And so I'm up and going at a pretty decent pace, but I'm also getting up in age. And pretty soon, as you know, I will be making a magic number.
Yes.
Magic number
August
is
3rd.
August 3rd.
Is the big date.
Be making a magic number of 80.
80.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And they're going to have a big blowout for me on August 5th. The friends are planning. I'm not planning it to hope that people can help them out, but my friends are planning this big blowout at the Hyatt on August 5th from 5:30 to 8:30, which they can very, graciously participate in.
Senator, are you excited?
Oh, to reach 80?
Yes, sir.
I'm overexcited. Being a black man to get past 70, and, the Lord has really blessed me real good.
Indeed.
And I just tell them now that, we weren't supposed to make it past 65.
Right.
Especially being a black man.
Senator, our time is well spent. However, can you give us some closing words?
I can. I would hope that the listeners recognize that we as a race of people still have a long way to go. Progress has been made. I've been a part of that progress. For me to have been the first black elected statewide in the history of Illinois, the first black vice president of Continental Bank, which used to be the biggest bank in our state, with the help of a whole lot of people, I've been able to be a trailblazer.
Indeed.
And I'm trying to set the example for the young people. If Roland Burris can do all of that from his background and where he came from, then some of these people can do no less. And that's what I try to encourage them to do. If I can do it, so can you.
Now, fun fact before we go, that Trailblazer, I understand, is written on your mausoleum.
Well, see, as I said, I'm a lawyer to do the planning for your demise, right?
Right.
So I got my stuff all laid out in my mausoleum. The owners of Oakwood Cemetery said, Brother Burr, because I was a controller of the state and I had some overseeing of the cemeteries. And they said, well, we don't want to happen to you to happen to Harold Washington. Well, what happened to Harold Washington? Well, there was no mausoleum or nothing to bury him. So we're going to help you plan out your mausoleum. And what we want to do is to put your resume on the background. They had this big hill picked out for me over there in Oakwood. I said, I don't need all that. So they ended up picking a little, triangular section there where they, with me paying a great deal of money, we built the mausoleum, and the resume is on the back of it. All those firsts that I accomplished, and that is for young people to come out and see in history without them having to scramble and try to raise money to do what we did for Mayor Washington.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Senator Burris, you are indeed a trailblazer, and I thank you so very much for what you have done.
Thank you. And you keep up the good work, too. Keep putting the message out,
that I
especially
shall.
to our young people. Okay?
That I shall.
Bless you.
And I look forward for the next birthday and the next one.
So do I.
Thank you, Senator. You are in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station. 89.3 is WKKC.
You're watching FocusTalk TV
With your host, Dennis Snipe.
We're all done, Senator.
I got to get home, get dinner, and go to 6 like me.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, we're going to let you go. Thank you so very
Well,
much.
thank you all, man. You should. This is
You're in tune, Chicago's most popular college music radio station. 89.3 is WKKC. This is Focus Talk, the thought-provoking, solution-oriented talk show daring to make a difference in our communities. We're talking on a regular basis because the answers really matter. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about politics, religion, personal development, education, history, music. And then from time to time, we are spotlighting positive people who are doing positive things right here in the Inglewood community, throughout the Chicagoland area, as well as the entire United States. I'm your host, Dennis Snipe. Joining me in the studio today is Miss Tequila Shabazz.
Yes.
Sister, how are you today?
I am excellent, sir. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so very much for being a part of today's show, sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely.
So let me start right here.
Okay.
Why are you affectionately known as the General?
Because I'm no nonsense. And no, but honestly, the name was given to me because I'm very serious about the work that I do, but I'm extremely strategic. With the work, when you're in the build black space, like I like to call it, in any sort of activism, a lot of times you'll find that we are quite reactionary with the things that we do. And one of the things that I try to teach or push as a coach in this space is that we have to be intentional with our acts, we have to be proactive, and we have to be strategic. And so I use a lot of data and research to back up the work that I do, so that we know I'm not making this up. This is not an opinion. This is how we move, and this is how we should be moving. So because I move in that way, and I'm very organized, and again, I'm very serious, they call me the General. The General.
Okay. Now, riddle me this. What type of work do you indulge in?
Absolutely. So I run a collective called the Bridge Embassy for Black America. And in there, we represent, we build, and we protect that which we build. What I focus on, our work primarily is in data and research, okay? So we do a lot of mining, a lot of the existing data that is here through your Nielsen's or your Pew research. But we also conduct our own, we aggregate our own data and the way that people move from across the country within our Facebook group, BIBA. From there, I use that information to educate individuals or coach individuals on how we should move. So it could be an everyday person that's saying, how can I better support Black? I don't have a lot of money, so how do I use my time? It could be from that person all the way to the business that is trying to incorporate themselves a little bit further or closer with the Black community in general. So I data and research, educate, and use that to mobilize the people so that we're moving in sync.
Okay. Now, the data that you collect, that you analyze, that you research, does it properly reflect people of color, or it is used in a different way in order to get the information that you need?
Okay, so it properly reflects, I'm going to say this, it properly reflects Black people in this country, because I know that it could be skewed when we say people of color to include Latinos or Asians, but this is specifically African Americans. And I use that to juxtapose against the information or the data that is already there to see how accurate what has been collected is. But I also use it primarily to, like I said earlier, to educate us on the best ways to move. So for example, if I'm looking at all of our spending, and I can look at and say, okay, Black people are spending 43% on average of their disposable income into the food industry, okay? 43%. This is what we're spending in the food industry. And we're spending 20% in personal care and beauty. That allows us to see, okay, we're really strong in the food area. Okay, we have all these restaurants, so we're able to break it down very specific from the types of industries that we're supporting and the sub industries within. So if we're talking about food, jerk chicken, or Asian, we can see where we have a deficit. We can see where we're strong. We can see where we're weak, and we can move accordingly. Why is this helpful? We don't need another jerk chicken restaurant. So if you're if you're opening a restaurant, here are some of the areas where we're weakest or we don't have a lot. We spend a lot of money on groceries. Okay. But you'll see a lot of that money going out, but we don't have a lot of the grocery stores. So what can we do now to use this data to start to build around things that we need?
Okay. So now, how do we redirect those particular areas and utilize them for the benefit of Black America?
I think that's a good question. That's where the education comes in. A lot of us there is no one else right now that is collecting data on the way that we do business with each other. Most of the data that is collected is how Black America does business with major corporations, where our money is going in the Walmarts and the Targets, etc. So how does this help us to build? Like I said before, it really helps when we have an emergence of entrepreneurs that are happening right now. When someone sits down with me and they say, hey, I have an idea to start a company, I can say, well, this is how, it's pretty, it's pretty saturated in the t-shirt market, or it's pretty saturated in the jerk chicken market. But again, here's where we are a little bit weak. Let's take some of this idea, bring this together, and then begin to build accordingly. We're in the time right now where we don't have a lot of, does that make sense? I'm sorry. Does it make sense? I'm trying to go back. I'm looking at your face and I'm like, wait, does that make sense to you? Did I answer that question?
Yes, most definitely. I have another question,
Okay.
but please finish your thought.
Okay, so you know what? Let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay.
I think I answered that.
Okay. So now, when you present the information to entrepreneurs or to individuals who are interested in starting businesses that may be saturated already in the community, how open are they to doing something different, or more specifically, following your lead?
That's a good question. It's a battle, because people
want what they want.
They want what they want.
Right.
They're territorial about their idea. A lot of the times, when we start our businesses, we're starting off of a hunch, right? We're not doing market research. That's what I'm finding we're not putting together business plans. We're just saying, nobody's doing this t-shirt. Really? How do you know? Because most of the time I'll start and say, have you looked at any of the businesses that are competing in this market? Nah, I just know nobody's doing this. Well, I can tell you who the individuals are that are in this market, what they're doing, how they're doing with our people, so I'm able to break that down. And usually when you come with facts, people are a little bit more willing to listen to you, but it's a fight. Sometimes people walk out like, you don't know, I'll show you. Other people are open and they're winning.
So Tequila, riddle me this. How, if I am an entrepreneur and I want to start a business and I don't have the research, but you do, how do I find you, or do you find me?
A little bit of both, actually, because I have this collective that is I have ears and eyes on the street, right? And they are constantly feeding me the content, okay? They're telling me, I supported this business with my dollar. I supported this charitable organization. With my time, because I say build Black, not buy Black. There is a distinct difference. Buy Black falls under build Black. That's just one component. Buy Black falls under build Black.
So if I'm buying Black, I'm automatically building Black?
That's one leg of building Black, correct, but it's not the whole story, which is something that I educate on, because right now what we're hearing around the movement, and Black economic empowerment is buy Black. That's promoting consumerism. We're still promoting consumerism, which means that we're promoting debt, Now, people are like, but we got to support our businesses. Yes, we do. But when you're talking about building a community, it's bigger than just buying things. What about giving Black? How are you investing your time? What about investing Black? What land are you're doing? What about
rich.
love Black? Exactly. So when I look at economics from a holistic perspective. And I'll give you an example of this. I study, there are different forms of capital, okay? So we look at 8 different forms of capital. We start first with spiritual capital, right? Then we go to natural capital, which is your natural resources. Spiritual capital is your faith. Then you're going to human capital. That's your experience, your knowledge, your skills. Now move on to cultural capital. That's your music, your language, your fashion, your arts. Then you're moving on from cultural capital, social capital. That's who you know. Your network is your net worth. Then you're moving on to physical capital, access to equipment and machines. All of that equals your financial capital. See, we're missing all the things that add up to financial capital, and we're going right there. So we're missing a big piece of the economic puzzle when you don't break down how wealth is generated in the first place.
Okay. All right. So now, considering that there are so many different pieces that are at play that many individuals have no knowledge of, how do you unite them so that they can be beneficial not only for the individual who is doing the uniting, but those who are disconnected?
So that's the tough part of the work. And that means that you have to continuously put out content. It's one of the reasons why, and I know we're going to talk about this a little later, but the reason why I produced the Neo Green book, which is meant to guide people towards a different way of thinking in this Build Black space.
Now, I want you to know that I had a whole list of questions already written out that I was going to ask you. However, we went off in a different direction. No. It's good. It's good because I'm very excited about what you do. Now, riddle me this. How did you get started with your mission?
Okay.
Collecting the information and being as astute in the area that you are?
It started with just being consistent and staying on the path. When I first started 5 years ago, 2012, that's what I call kind of the reemergence of the Black empowerment movement. Trayvon Martin marks that. You saw the emergence of the Black Lives Matter. You saw a Black Mall born. You saw a Bridge Embassy born. Even though it may not have been directly tied to the Trayvon Martin, I know that my work was directly tied to the violence that was happening here in Chicago. And I'm like, I have to do something. I left my work with the Tribune Media Group, getting paid very well, and dedicated myself to community. And from there, I took the position as a student. So I started off where, I'm going to get all these people and we're going to put in a little bit of money and we're going to go out and we're going to help individuals that need capital, right? Because I saw that our communities were lacking in capital. And of course, as you continue to do this work and you are met with different challenges, then you either give up or you continue to find a way to make this work. About 2014, I believe, 2014, I read a book called Invisible Capital by Chris Rabb, and it opened my eyes about economics. We're so busy focused on financial capital, but there's a whole nother world that we're not talking about. Social capital, for example. Think about how I'm on the show now, or how you get most of your guests, or the conversation we were having beforehand. Call this person, hit that person, do that. That's our social capital, right? And most times that's how we get who it's about who you know. So those different things began to open my eyes. And then I looked back and I said, wait a minute. I produced 30 short films with $0. How did I do that?
30 short films?
30 short films in 1 year, covering social activists, Black social activists or Black social entrepreneurs in the city of Chicago. And this would be valued at a minimum. I'm talking about a dirt cheap budget would be at about $500,000 if you did it dirt cheap, And I'm like, how did I do that? I think I invested maybe $3,000 on the whole thing. And then that's when I started putting value to human capital, social capital. I'm like, oh, human capital. I knew people that had the experience. I knew people that had knowledge with making things. What I didn't know, I taught myself. Then I began to go through my network, who do I know? Interviewing them, and they connected me to other people. So that's when it started to make sense that even though they're pushing this narrative of poverty, and we're accepting that narrative, we are a community of abundance, and we always have been. And this is how we've made it as far as we have. And money has nothing to do with that.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So now the purpose of capital,
Yes.
and correct me if I'm wrong, is to acquire things so that you'll be able to promote, build, increase, go forward, move on, those particular things. So with spiritual capital, with the different types of capital that you mentioned, they can be put to a productive process or way. However, most of us don't think that.
We don't. We're too busy thinking about money. We're too busy thinking we're lost in the money and therefore we stay broke. It is true. Think about this. I thought years before I left my comfortable job making 6 figures, I wanted to go out on my own. You know, I had my daughter. I'm like, she got to get through college. We got to pay this. We got to pay that. We got to pay that. Most people remain enslaved or imprisoned to situations that they don't even want to be in because they're thinking about, I'm not going to have enough money to pay this bill or survive. But here it is. We're talking 5 years where I've made less money than I've ever made in my life. And that includes as a teenager. But I feel wealthier than I've ever been in my life because I haven't been homeless. I eat every single day. I've sat near and had dinner with some very prestigious people that you would say are out of my class league, you know, and so it's been revealed to me that I have everything that I need. And once I've adopted that mindset, really things just, I know this sounds crazy, but they begin to show up when you know how to use your capital effectively. So if you have a home, right? You have a home and you have a backyard and you're doing nothing. You may have some barbecues back there, here and there, but you have this backyard and you spend at least $1,000 on produce every year. Now you decide, you know what? I'm going to increase my human capital in the area of gardening, my knowledge in the area of gardening. You learn about gardening or urban farming and you decide I'm gonna grow my cucumbers and my tomatoes and my kale in the backyard. You spend $20 on seeds. Now you've reduced what you had to put out financially from $1,000 to $20, learned a new skill, grew enough fruit and vegetables in your backyard. Now, canned them for the remainder of the year and had some to share with others or possibly even sell at a farmer's market.
Okay. Now hold that thought.
Okay.
We're going to take a break.
Okay.
And on the other side, because I don't believe that it's over already as far as this first segment.
Oh my God.
I'm here mesmerized by everything that you have to say. So hold on. We're going to come back and we're going to talk more about the whole capitalistic portion as well as moving forward and then most importantly, the mindset.
Absolutely.
You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station, 89.3 WKKC.
You're watching FocusTalk TV
With your host, Dennis Snipe.
Ooh. Wait, is it safe to speak?
Yeah, we're good.
Is that too much?
No.
I get like jungly. I'm sorry.
No, that was rich.
Was it?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm like, is that too much?
Okay. 5, 4. You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station, 89.3 is WKKC. This is Focus Talk, the thought-provoking, solution-oriented talk show daring to make a difference in our communities. We're talking on a regular basis because the answers really matter. What are we talking about? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're talking about politics, religion, personal development, history, music, and then from time to time, we are spotlighting positive people who are doing positive things right here in the Inglewood community, throughout the Chicagoland area, as well as the continental United States. I'm your host, Dennis Snipe. Joining me in the studio today is Doc ILLAH. Doc, how are you, sir?
Outstanding, Dennis. How are you, man?
I am well. Now, Doc, you're no stranger to the roster of Focus Talk, so we welcome you back. And you are a master of many different things. You're a performer, you're a writer, you're a mentor, you're a lot of different things. So how did everything get started for you? How did you become so talented, or how can I say so versed in so many different areas?
Well, I come from the old school, and in the old school, if you failed at one thing, you tried something else.
Okay.
So, I failed at a few things. However, I tried many things, and the more things I tried, the more things I loved. And there were certain things that just honed in and locked in. And, coming up on the west side of Chicago, it helped to develop all the things that I do. When you think about the music for me started about the same time as rapping, rapping and the dancing. You had break dancing and pop locking, all of those things kicked in. And while one was happening, I was figuring out that I was good at one, and I was like, well, wait a minute, I can do that too. So they just kind of, they kind of gelled, and everything just started to build itself. When you think about the mentoring, all you have to do is look at where I came from. I came from a really rough neighborhood, and when you see what's going on with the youth, man, it made me want to help those that I saw in trouble, simply because sometimes I didn't have that help.
Right.
So when you see a young man or woman out there struggling, you want to help them. You want to show them different, because a lot of our youth think that there's a level of hopelessness. That's what it feels like in the street. Sometimes when you're just riding down the street, it just feels like hopelessness. And I have to do what I have to do to make a change to that, because, I fought in the military, and I figure if I fought for the country, I can fight for the children.
Okay. All right. Now, that's very interesting to me, just the whole military piece. Now, how did you end up in the military?
That's interesting. That's actually a funny story. I was about to graduate high school, and at the time, I went to high school in Georgia. I left here, Chicago, in the early 80s, and moved down south. And my mother didn't know it at the time. We had went down to Georgia for a vacation. And she didn't know that while I was going to school on the west side of Marshall, that I had been in two incidences where I was standing next to the guy that got shot.
Wow.
So when I went to Georgia, I was like, this might be a good move, because third time is a charm. Plus, I saw this girl I liked too. That was part of it. So, I was like, let's take a shot. She was fine. She was like Janet Jackson. But that's a whole nother story. But I ended up going to school down there, and man, that was a major thing for me. That's what that is.
Okay. All right. So it was basically you getting away from what was going on in the city.
Yes, because the violence and the gangbanging had really started to kick in at that time, and I was like, I'm not about to be a gangbanger for sure. And if I can go down south and escape this, that's a good move for me. So getting back to the part where you said, how did I get into the military? Basically, I was about to graduate high school, and I had taken, the entrance exams for colleges. So I was going to go to school to be an electrical dude, house wiring, because I took electromechanics. So when they came back to review our scores, they were like, we can't put you in an electrical house wiring program.
Why not?
They told me my scores were too high. They said my math scores were off the charts. They said we need a brain like yours in technology. So I was like, okay, cool. But then I thought about it. I was like, I don't have any money. I'm not going to ask my parents, because I come up in the Cooley High area, in the Cooley High era, when, preachers said, well, Mom almost 18, and, it's time for me to get out on my own. that's the mindset that I had. That I'm grown, so I have to be on my own, so I have to be able to fend for myself. So I was thinking to myself, okay, how do I pay for college? At a certain point, I had taken the ASVAB, and this recruiter was calling my house every day. So I told the lady one day, I said, listen, if you stop calling my house, I will come down and listen to what you have to say and possibly sign up. So she stopped calling. I went up to Columbus, Georgia, and I sat down, and they showed me this film that made the military look absolutely fantastic. So I signed up, and I said, okay, I'll be able to pay for my own college. And needless to say, I never made it to college. But man, I ended up doing 26 years in the military.
26 years?
Yes.
Wow. So you are a staunch military man.
Man, most of my life was spent in the military.
Okay.
I fought in a couple of wars, and but I have no regrets, none whatsoever.
Based on the fact that you being a staunch military man, what is your take on the whole flag thing at this particular time?
Ooh, that's a hot topic. The flag thing. You care to elaborate on that? Because that's a wide open subject, and you can go so many ways with it.
Right. So we look at the NFL, and let's start with Colin Kaepernick.
Okay.
And him protesting by taking a knee. And so, do you agree with the stance? Do you disagree? Do you think that the political aspect in sports shouldn't mix? Do you agree with our president? And whereas that those who take a knee in protest should be fired?
Well, and this is just me, and this is as a person who is a veteran who has fought in 2 wars. I fought for the right for you to be able to protest and do whatever it is you do. We actually have freedom of speech, freedom, the right to assemble, and everything. And that's the whole thing about America. It's supposed to be the greatest place on earth because of the freedoms that we have.
Right.
And the freedoms are what I fought for. So, with that being said, if Colin Kaepernick feels a need to protest based on the fact he feels that something isn't right, then he has that right. I fought for that right, so he should absolutely be able to do it. He isn't breaking any laws. He isn't harming anybody. I don't feel it's a disrespect whatsoever. I hear people say that it's disrespectful to the soldiers. No, it's not. We fought for those freedoms, so exercise your freedoms because I fought for them. If I don't have a problem with it, why should those who never put on a uniform have a problem with it?
Okay. Now, there are some who are protesting, who are not watching NFL, who are not supporting games, VFWs, who are not turning it on at all because they say it's a disrespect. They say that they've gone too far with it and that it shouldn't even be in conversation.
Well, for those people, I mean, you have the right not to watch if you don't want to. So again, the freedoms say that we have a freedom to do what we want to do here. And if you decide that you don't want to watch, that is absolutely your right. My thing is, nobody should be forced to do anything because of what somebody else feels, because then there's no freedom associated with that. There's no freedom associated with that. You're being basically bullied because you're being told that you have to feel a certain way. What's the whole freedom thing if you're being forced to do something against your will? That's oxymoronic to me.
So, Doc, let me ask you this. How do you think it should be solved? Or what would your suggestion be?
My suggestion would be for everybody to not be so uptight. I think we have too many uptight people here. I mean, it is what it is. A lot of people have a problem with the fact, well, let's look at it like this. You have 2 different angles. You have those who Colin Kaepernick was being a voice for the voice of the abused, the voice of the little man, and he was speaking for those who couldn't speak for themselves. Then you have the people who are the privileged people who don't understand that. And what you have is, you have the same thing everybody's watching, but based on experience from each side, one can't understand the other one's position. It's like, how can you not feel my pain? You can't feel my pain because you've never experienced it. And the other side, well, why do you feel that way? I mean, and they don't understand because they've never been deprived of anything. So until we can sit down and actually have a real conversation, and when I say conversation, I mean what we talk and the other party is listening and not just waiting for you to stop words coming from your mouth so they can speak their piece. People aren't listening. That's what the problem is. We have to learn how to communicate effectively, and then we can bring about some change, because otherwise it's going to be it's like a seesaw. One person's up, the other one's down, and it's just back and forth. There is no even keel there.
Okay. All right. So now, now what about our illustrious president, who has gotten involved in a particular situation that I think that there are some other things that he could be doing, as opposed to commenting on football and how individuals are not treating the game fairly or in a manner that it should be dealt with?
Well, being that I am a retired military person, and I swore an oath when I joined the military, and I still carry myself as if I wear the uniform, I therefore don't even speak on that particular thing, because when you're talking about the commander-in-chief, again, I walk as if I still have the uniform on and I'm held to a certain standard. I gave you my opinion on the situation, but when it talks about the individual itself, I pretty much stay clear of that one. Okay. I can't make a recommendation on what the commander-in-chief should or should not do.
Okay. All right. Well said. Well said. Now, Doc ILLAH, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about what I invited you to talk about, and that was music.
All right. Sounds like a winner.
We've been talking about political issues and current events, and we kind of steered away from what we were going to talk about, but we'll be back in just a moment with more Focus Talk right here on Chicago's #1 college radio station, 89.3 WKKC.
You're watching Focus Talk TV
With your host, Dennis Snipe.
I didn't want to let that go.
That was heavy, dude. I was like, oh.
I didn't want to let that go at all. And there was no way for me to come back and be like, okay, let's talk about music now.
Yeah, you know what?
I'm sorry, Joe.
Can't be a highway, then be a trail. If you can't be the sun, then be a star. Because it isn't by size that you win or fail, but be the best at whatever you are. If you can't be a highway, then be a trail. If you can't be the sun, then be a star. Because it isn't by size that you win or fail, but be the best at whatever you are. And stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused. Stay focused.
Joe.
Black Killer.